find yourself like bursting into a fit of rage every now and again, bursting into tears, just thinking, what am I becoming? If that is the case, this video is for you. You're not going mad, you're just finally feeling it all, and it is one of the great uncoverings of midlife and menopause. And while you're in the thick of it, you're probably going to be thinking, that doesn't sound like a great uncovering to me. But I promise you, the whole reason it might feel a little bit clunky and a bit awkward right now is because the script that you've been living by up until this point is not really serving your purpose. And when you are getting these strong emotional signals, it is literally, it is data. And when you can translate what that data means into how life is making you feel, whether that's angry, frustrated, happy, peaceful, whatever it might be, we want to look at all the wide variety of emotions. That then gives you the necessary information to choose to make changes or not. So today we're talking about the emotional intensity of midlife and this sort of uncovering, sort of peeling back the onion layers, as it were, and really revealing who we are right in the middle of that onion and giving you a sense of this is you and reclaiming you and being really proud of who you are rather than thinking you're not behaving in a way that you should be behaving in. We've been raised largely in a culture that sees women as, well, we're supposed to be meek, we're supposed to be quite mild, we're supposed to be people pleasing, supposed to be low maintenance, easygoing. And the minute we express a boundary or a truth or even stamp our feet or hurl the plate against the wall, then we are considered too much, or that we've gone mad, or we've become a lunatic. And in actual fact, there's not that at all. It's the fact that we get to this stage of life where I don't want to sound like anti-patriarchy. I don't want to sound like I'm beating the men across the head with a very heavy hammer, because it's not that. And to a degree, the way our sort of cultural biases, the way our societal biases, we've grown up in this. You know, this is the life that we've known. While there is still oppression of women, of course, and women's rights are still, we're fighting for them to have equal rights to men, which just seems ludicrous in this day and age. But I really want to emphasize that I'm trying to see it as more about what's going on with you and letting that have an indication of what goes on around us, societal biases that we grow up with, and also understanding that you're a raw, very real, very authentic human being who is feeling these strong emotions because of the way culture, society, and the sort of like little white picket fence lifestyle is sold to us all. And while some people love that white picket lifestyle, a lot of us either can't have it because of our life situation or we don't want it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It can be quite confronting when you suddenly become aware of your very strong emotions, and it can be quite scary too, because you know it's changing us. Not only are we going through the menopause, our hormones are all over the shop, relationships are changing, dynamics of various relationships undergo all sorts of flux through this time of life. But on top of that, if you allow yourself, you can really get to know yourself really well. And I understand there'll be some women who watch this who think, but I already know myself well. But are you really in tune with why you felt so pissed off last night? Why you wanted to just roll over and go to sleep? Why you're no longer feeling sociable? It's one thing being aware that this is just how you are, but is there this disconnect between actually who you truly are and the life that you want to achieve? Did I even verbalize that properly? I don't know. I hope it's coming across as how I mean it too. Like I said, I don't want this to be like a clunky anti-establishment type of video, but when we really do become so familiar with who we are and aware of who we are, our absolute the individual inside of us, that can be quite confrontational because it requires change in a lot of instances. It requires us to maybe voice things that we find difficult to voice because we don't want confrontation. We want to be the people pleasers. We don't want to upset the apple cart. And I mean, I don't like confrontation. I really do not like confrontation, and it takes a lot out of me physically and energetically when there is confrontation around. Even if I hear confrontation, it bothers me. But that is something that's deep rooted in me, and it's something that I identify with. It's something that I realize I have. And I suppose it's something I could work through at some point if I really felt I needed to. At the moment, I don't think I avoid confrontation. I'm quite outspoken. In fact, I'm probably more outspoken than most people within a certain parameter. And like, as you know, how I caveated this, it's not about the anti-establishment. It's about recognizing who we're becoming. Because I know a lot of you don't want that confrontation either. You don't want that huge tidal wave of, well, this is me and my raw self, and you've got to take it or leave it. And if you don't like it, well, then bugger off. Because we all live within society. We all have our family dynamics. We all have it is about give and take. And it's not about, well, this is me and this is what I want, so I'm going to get it. And if I don't get it, I'm going to, stamp my feet and have a paddy. But it is also about honoring the individual that you are and understanding that when you're feeling angry or frustrated or bored or just literally dog tired all the time, that is a sign that there are energetic disconnects within your life as a whole. And those are the things that I would encourage you to explore in more detail and just spend time on it, thinking about it, reflecting on it. Why did that piss me off so much? Is it because da di da di da? Is it because I don't feel like I'm able to express myself? Is it because I'm always doing stuff for everybody else and I never have time for myself? Whatever it might be, when we allow ourselves that time for reflection, it can be so revealing. And yes, our hormones are not helping matters because stress hormones are rising naturally as our estrogen falls, our body shapes are changing. They don't have to, by the way. It is just a few different things that we need to do in order to bring ourselves back to maybe a healthier weight that we feel comfortable with. Again, you have to find what you feel comfortable with and that fits into your lifestyle as you want to live your life. I love my red wine. I'm never going to be a bikini competitor thin person. I don't want to be. But even if I did have that as a goal, it doesn't align with my lifestyle. I want to be strong. I want to be fit. I want to have energy. I want to have fun. And fun for me is enjoying wine with my friends and my family. I really enjoy that. And my whole life doesn't revolve around wine, but it's a very easy example to give here because a lot of people are very anti-alcohol or pro-alcohol. For me, it's a 1 to 2 glasses of wine most days, and it's something that I enjoy. But it would also not align with the goals of being like completely snatched because I would have to give that up, and I don't want to. So make sure that however you want your life to look for you is realistic. Those goals are realistic for how you want your life to be and the things that you enjoy. And most importantly, reflect on those things that are causing you distress and those negative emotions that are coming through, and become cognizant of what's causing it, because once you're aware of what's causing it, then it's up to you whether you want to make the changes to change how these things are having an impact on you. A lot of women in midlife, they go through relationship breakdown with their significant other, and a lot of that time is because I think we just become much more authentic to ourselves. We sort of strip away those layers, and we strip away that, I suppose, need to be socially compliant. It's not necessarily because we've changed too much, but we've just stopped shrinking to fit into somebody else's idea of what our life should look like. And that can feel quite terrifying because it can feel quite suffocating. It can be very discombobulating. It can mean that you're faced with a lot of change, and change can be quite challenging. But at the other end of that change, oh, it can be such a relief when you've done it. And I think we go through life expecting it to be easier than it is. And life just has this habit, well, certainly from my own experience, it can be bloody hard at times. And when it is hard, there are other things that make it even harder. And it's just like somebody's piling all these stones on top of you, and you're at the bottom of the bucket going, ah, I'm squashed. And you keep getting more and more squashed. But when you decide to lift yourself out of that bucket and push yourself away through those rocks, it can be really challenging. But when you're out of that bucket and you've washed the sand off and you've got the stones off you and the rocks off you, you you stand in your own power, and you have it gives you agency on how you want your life to go forward. And I think that is really important, is having that sense of control, that you can influence these things if you choose to. Just bring it into hormones. When our estrogen and testosterone and progesterone and generally sex hormones are fluctuating, particularly through the perimenopause, you're likely to be more emotional, and you might have the rage. You may just have days when you're really irritable, and you'll have other days when you just feel really energetic and you're happy and everything seems to be going really, really well. And you'll think, oh my God, this is great. And then it doesn't last. You might find that you're getting overstimulated by just noise and crowds and clutter. That's something that I really noticed myself, is I did not want the noise. I don't want traffic noise. I don't want people noise. I don't want neighbors' dogs barking. I just don't want that noise anymore. I've become super sensitive to it, and it doesn't help because I live in somewhere that's quite quiet too, so those noises are more amplified. I think if I lived on a busy road, you eventually get used to the noise of the traffic, and it sort of becomes this background blur. But I definitely, for me, I've noticed that those sorts of things bother me much more than they used to do. But that's not a sign that you're becoming this mad, erratic individual. It just means that things are changing in your chemistry, that you're more sensitive to these things surrounding you. And as a result of that, rather than battling these sensitivities, it's just like, okay, well, understand that you have them. And maybe if you're able to mediate the effect that they have on you. And for me, that would I live overlooking a loch surrounded by the mountains, and at the edge of a small village, and so I don't get those noises that bother me so much. But the really tough bit is if you don't like the individual that you're becoming, because let's face it, when you become a bit more raw and you upset the apple cart a bit, and you may have said a few things to loved ones that you may not have said in the past, but these things needed to be said, but it does ruffle feathers, and it does change the dynamics, and those dynamics might be changed temporarily, or it might be more of a permanent thing. And you look in the mirror and you think, who am I becoming? What is happening to me? You might feel angrier, you might feel numb, you might just feel quiet, you might just feel lost. And there's grief in that, real grief, because you're changing and your relationships with other people are changing. But there's a difference between grief and guilt. Your evolution might bring some negative emotions with it as well. But like grief, you work your way through it. And because when you think about it, as you're evolving, you're making these changes because other things are overstimulating you now. You're feeling angrier, you're feeling more frustrated. And when there's certain things in your environment that are triggering those emotions, sometimes you need to make those changes. You need to be aware of them. It might be just to make people pull their weight a bit more around the house, delegate a bit more, try doing less stuff. Because I don't know about you, my days are literally packed with so much stuff. And there are days when I just think, oh, God, this is exhausting. And that's my fault, because I could either do less of it, or I could not be as distracted sometimes. There are days when, if I'm physically and emotionally tired, I waste more time. I'm just distracted, and it's almost like my brain can't be bothered to think about what I want to do next or what I need to do next. And so I actually do waste time. And that is a sign that I probably need to take some time off. Just need to get away from the workload and the busyness and just the stuff, and running quite a large house and a big garden and more than one business. And dogs and cats. It weighs on you. And while I would not really want to change any of that, there are times when I think I could probably manage things better. But again, we're all human, and it's about finding that realistic balance between what do you need to do in order to manage your life effectively, understanding that you're going through these physical changes with your hormones right now, and that these sensitivities are coming to the fore, that you are peeling back some of the layers of compliance that you've had in your younger years. And now you're getting to that stage where you're really identifying with a different individual as who you are at your core identity. I really feel like I know myself 100% now. Whereas maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was definitely a more mediated version of who I am. And while I've had to go through some changes over those years, I wouldn't want to go back to that either. And so, yeah, there might be a few tumultuous waves that you're navigating right now. But if it's in alignment with who you are at your core, there will be no guilt with that. And it is about grieving the life that is gone now, but also really welcoming in the new life to come, where you stand your ground, where you stand true to who you are and you feel that you're living a life that's in alignment with your core values and how you want your life to be. It's a bit like the fog clearing after the years of pushing through and stumbling forward. It's not always graceful. It's a bit like ripping off the plaster, and you've got the pain, but you've also got the relief and that sense of, I'm glad that's over and done with. Midlife and menopause really does force truth to the surface. Old coping mechanisms stop working, your true self comes through, relationships shift, and your body, your needs just start to speak louder. And this is not a problem to fix, it's a message to receive and then act upon. You're not too emotional, you're finally aligned to feel things that deeply. And that's not a flaw, that's a feature. So let's just zoom out for a minute, because again, we can look at ourselves as being the problem. I don't think it is you or me or us as individuals as being the problem. I see it as how society wants us to be. That is what causes this disconnect. That is what causes the problem. Once upon a time, and I'm actually probably going to write a book about this at some point too, but the crone was the village elder, the woman who was revered because she had that wisdom. And she was a really vital and important part of the community. Whereas now, you think of the crone and you just think of this witchy beaked, hunched up old woman who's a bit wizened and a bit wonky and a bit crazy. And that's how society depicts the older woman. And why? Because we have so much to give. Yeah, we may not be the sort of the youthful beauties that we used to be in the past. Who cares? We have that wisdom. We've given, we've evolved, we've nurtured, we've birthed in many cases. And there is something so sacred about that. It's an absolute miracle what a woman's body achieves. Even the fact that we just have to go through the periods and then, maybe pregnancy if you're lucky enough or you choose to be pregnant. And then the menopause if we're lucky enough to get this old or to get to this age. Our bodies are incredible. And I think we tend to dilute that. We forget what walking miracles we are. You're not faulty, you're just human. It's the way we're supposed to be that's faulty. The system was never built to support a woman in her full truth. It doesn't make you wrong, it makes the system incomplete. And yes, we live in that system, but just because we live in that system doesn't mean we need to accept how that system prescribes it to us. So here's the tension. So how do we show up in a world that hasn't caught up with our development? We're not going to smash the patriarchy over breakfast, and nor maybe do we want to, but we still need to function in real life. So here are a few pragmatic ways that you can help support yourself while functioning within this kind of wacky, out of kilter system. And one of the first things I would suggest is journaling. Give yourself space to process and to create. I think the great thing about journaling is it's just your notes. It's just your writing out your thoughts, and burn them if you want to. If there's any risk of anybody being nosy, just write them and then burn them. or write them and save them and lock them away, or write them and share them, because I think it's really important that people understand, that people close to you understand how you're feeling. Or it might be that you don't want to do journaling, go walking in nature, potter in the garden, do some log moving if that makes you feel better. For me, heavy work out in the garden, it exhausts me, but it is so cathartic as well. And if ever there's a massive problem that arises, the garden is the first place I go. And it is really soothing. It's exhausting, but it's soothing, and it's a great way to get rid of some stress and do something that's rewarding. And also, I think because you're connecting to earth, negative ions that we get the benefit of that from being around nature, which helps then counteract those electromagnetic fields that we're bombarded with everywhere, and the positive ions that do not have a positive effect on us. Also, learn the power of the pause. I think we're always doing, is that we're always on. The only time we actually turn the off switch is when we shut our eyes in bed and hope that we go to sleep, and maybe we'll get a full night's sleep if we're really, really lucky. Just get used to having that pause a bit more often. That might just be taking time over your meals. Because how many of us these days sit and actually eat a meal without distraction? Hardly ever. And we're always on the go. We're always either listening to something or watching something or talking to someone or listening to someone while we're eating. Maybe, you know, give yourself a treat and maybe book yourself on a date out, just you and a nice meal somewhere. If that is something that you'd like to do, maybe take a book and just go and enjoy time out by yourself. Have a nice meal, nice glass of whatever you like, and just really embrace that. But the funny thing is, if you did that, and I would also too, to a degree, I'd be thinking, oh God, they're going to think what do I do? I'm sitting in the middle of a restaurant, which is surrounded by people talking to each other, and it's just me. And people might look at me and think I'm strange. That's society's expectations of us. That's society's bias negatively impacting us. We should be able to just go out and have dinner by ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's more wrong with the people that would sit and possibly judge you for being out by yourself. It's like, oh, loser, she's got no friends. It's crazy, isn't it, how these things affect us and impact our actions on things that we might actually want to do. Also, speak calmly but truthfully. We have such an aversion to saying no, even when we desperately want to say no, but we feel we shouldn't because we don't want to disappoint somebody, or we don't want to make them angry or have a negative reaction to our no. But this is when we're trading our energy. This is when we're trading our sense of self, because there are different leagues of no, or different implications that can come from those no's. And there are some things that are incredibly important where, maybe somebody's risking overstepping a boundary with you, but because you don't want to say no, you allow that boundary to be overstepped. And then you spend however long afterwards regretting that and berating yourself and getting angry with the individual and also yourself. When in actual fact, there was nothing wrong with your truth and there was nothing wrong with your no. And even if that individual or those individuals reacted negatively towards your no, that's a red flag. And even more important that you said no. Because somebody who really values you and values your integrity and your way of life would not see that as a negative thing. They might not really love it because you're saying no to something maybe they want, but it would reveal an awful lot about them if they were really gracious about respecting your no. Next one is choose your battles wisely, because it's not all about confrontation and it's not all about no to everything. Some things it is just easier to let it slip and let it go. You only you can know what the cost to you is of, is it easier for you to just let it slip and go? Or by letting it slip and go and you not saying no, does that then cause you more distress? So again, just be mindful of the battles that you pick, but choose them wisely and choose the ones that are really important to you, and stand your ground where necessary. There are things you can do also to anchor your body, such as strength training, which I always talk about. It has such a profound impact on every aspect of your life. Good nutrition, cut out ultra processed foods or significantly reduce them. They're not doing you any good at all, same as refined sugars. And you might say, yeah, that's easier said than done. I love my biscuit with my cup of tea in the afternoon. Try having dates, a couple of dates instead of a biscuit, or a banana. Yeah, it might take you a couple of weeks to get through that. But these, often if you're having like the odd little snack and treat here, then that leads to the other little snack and treat there. And you have to work out what your goals are. Is your mental health, is your hormone balance, and your menopause symptoms too, because those are negatively impacted by those ultra processed foods and the sugars. What is more important to you? Is it the biscuit or the cake or whatever it might be that lasts literally, I mean, however long it takes you to eat it, which probably is not very long. And then you've got the hours after that where that has that negative chemical imbalance in your body, because it's not just you eating it, it's everything that goes on underneath the hood, as it were, once you've eaten that. And or choosing a healthier option. And it's not about being perfect, but it is about being aware of, again, what is more important to you. If you're struggling with weight, excess weight, or excess fat, I would say, really review what you're eating and drinking, because there's a lot, you have complete control over what you eat and drink. And yes, we all can get these cravings. And if you're feeding your body with the nutrition it needs, so things like the protein, plenty of water, healthy starchy carbs in the beginning and middle of the day, not so much at the end of the day. We don't need the healthy starchy carbs at the end of the day to such a degree. And yeah, lots of vegetables, some fruit. Your body's not really going to be needing the other stuff. You won't be craving the other stuff because your blood sugars are being balanced. Your body's getting nutritionally what it needs. Often we reach for these sweeter things because we've probably not eaten enough protein. We may not be eating enough fiber, and so our body's needing something else. And so then that's when you sort of reach for the snacks and the treats that don't really serve you. So just be mindful of that. Nutrition is huge in how we go through the menopause, and make sure that you're aware of that, and that your goals for yourself are being translated in the nutritional choices that you make. Less scrolling. How many of us do aimless scrolling? You wake up and it's just like, oh, scroll, scroll, scroll. You go to bed, it's just like, oh, scroll, scroll, scroll. Through the day, you've sat there and it's just like, oh, I've got nothing to do, or I'm bored, or I need a distraction. So you scroll, scroll, scroll. The amount of time, I mean, it's scary. The last figures that I saw a few months back, most people are wasting at least 2 hours a day on just scrolling. Well, that equates to, I think it's 3 months of a year. If you equate it into like a working day, so sort of 8 hour working day, how much of your time are you wasting by just negatively scrolling? And how many of us, we scroll and we think, oh God, I feel so good after that. We don't. You might see the odd thing that you think, oh, it's just beautiful, I love that. But very rarely, it's often comparison, it's often, yeah, it works for them, it doesn't work for me. And then there's all these ads, and you just think, oh God, it drives me nuts. And then there's something else that and we do risk losing so much of our time to aimless scrolling. It serves no purpose at all. It just undermines your sense of self, and it wastes a heck of a lot of time. So just be mindful of that. Screen time, be really strategic with the amount of time you're spending in front of your screens. Also know that it's really going to negatively impact your sleep. Screens before bed are a no-go. If you're struggling with sleep, the amount of women that I speak to who say, oh, my sleep's terrible through the menopause, but they're eating the wrong things. They're actually going to bed too late, so they're missing their sort of sleepy window before, they're almost getting their second wind. They haven't got their nighttime routine, so, dimmer lights, cool bedroom, no screens. Yeah, if you love watching television before you go to bed, watch it, but maybe then listen, turn the television off in time so that you can either listen to a book, an audio book for 15 minutes before you drift off to sleep, or read a book for 15 minutes, or meditate or deep breathe, so that you have that disconnect from the of the stuff that you're watching and ingesting through the screen, and you're just allowing yourself to power down and relax before you go to bed. Have a sleepy tea, or maybe some magnesium, a magnesium supplement, or magnesium complex, or magnesium glycinate. These things are going to really benefit you and your sleep. And if you can focus on bringing your sleep forward a little bit more, it's amazing how even just an extra half an hour earlier going to bed can have such a profound impact on how you feel when you wake up the next morning. Get outside, more sunlight, more stillness. How many of us live in a box? We wake up in the box. We move from our house box into, or our flat box into our car box, or our train box, or our subway box. And then we go to work and we work in a box. And then we repeat it all on the way back home. We come back into our box. But how many of us are actually taking time outside in nature? That has such a profound impact. We're designed to be outside. We're designed to be outdoors. You do need to have ultraviolet light on your skin, and ideally within half an hour of waking up in the morning, because it helps to set your body clock so that at night time your melatonin, which is your sleepy hormone, is secreting sufficiently so that you're feeling tired, and your cortisol levels have come down enough so that that melatonin has that positive effect. So just wrapping it up, you are not too much, you're not going crazy, you're not becoming a monster. You're just becoming your true authentic self. And while that might cause a few ruffles and be a bit of a challenge, it is ultimately really freeing, because you can only have freedom if you are authentically true to yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to keep living this life that is not true to you, and that will have negative emotional impact on you for the rest of your life. You don't have to be who you were. You don't have to be what other people expect of you. You just have to be you. And when you allow yourself to be fully you, you give the courage to every other woman who might be thinking, oh, I daren't ruffle the feathers. You give them the courage to be themselves too. So have you noticed yourself changing? Have you noticed yourself thinking, I actually don't want that anymore in my life? And if you have, and if you feel you'd like to share it in the comments, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are. Because it's not just you, it's not just me. There's so many of us, and the amount of women that I talk to are all going through this phase. And the more we can share our stories and share our thoughts on the matter, the more those women who lack that courage to stand in their own space will feel more inclined to start to step into that space. So thank you for your company. I hope it's been helpful for you. If you did find it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to be notified of future episodes, you can click the little bell icon, and I will look forward to catching you next week.